we got. I feel like we were like watching like the movies that we picked, and it was like, man, these are kind of. We picked the heavy ones, and then like we came out for a second, it was like, bloop, just right back down. It's like, okay, here we go, every week.
To the Rewatchers on the pod, Black Swan edition. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Mitchell Marshall. I'm here with
Tyler McKinley,
Tyler Harris,
Justin Hammer.
What up? So we watched the Black Swan, the classic. Is it a classic? Is it just like a well thought of film?
We'll get there. I don't know. I had some different feelings watching it this time than I have before, I think. So
it's a 2010 movie that is kind of considered this is probably a Natalie Portman. I mean, she won the Oscar for it, but it's a serious turn to like, she's definitely, she nominated when she was like 8 or something?
I can't remember if she was nominated for Leon. I mean, that was like,
but she was already in
yeah.
the,
oh yeah, she was
I'm super serious and prestigious. I just wanted to make out with Hayden Christensen, so I kind of took a step down for a little while.
Exactly. And who didn't at that time? Who doesn't?
You know
now?
what? I do enjoy, you know what's a good bad movie is the movie Jumper with him and Rachel Bilson.
That is, I could be on board with that. That's a
It's
very
fun.
specific. That is a very specific genre of movie that
Yeah.
only existed for like 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of. There was one with Chris Evans and Dakota Fanning. Push.
Oh,
Did you ever
you're
see
right.
Push?
That was like the pseudo superhero. Too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like that is. Those are like.
wasn't there one with Justin
Sister
Timberlake
movies.
in a watch?
That's In Time.
Okay, that is a
That's very different.
very good, and you guys would all hate it movie. It's very bad, very good.
Not good.
A little different vibe. It's a great like future.
Hey, wait,
Time is money. Life is time.
Tell me if I remember this correctly. Olivia Wilde plays Justin Timberlake's mom in that movie.
Everyone stops aging at 25, so
yeah.
everyone is hot.
Everyone's just-
Which how did they not get a sequel?
Yeah,
man?
seriously. That sounds like CW the movie.
I'm shook that the CW or Netflix hasn't resurrected it as a miniseries.
I'm also shocked.
Oh, I'm writing it. I'm making a spec script tonight. Oh, you guys have inspired me. Okay.
I mean, that's the way that you start like keeping like prejudice in Hollywood is you're like, I mean, the concept of the thing, you gotta be 25 or younger, so sorry.
Yeah, this isn't ageism. It's really the plot device. We'll make all the leads.
Get the fuck out of here, Maggie Smith.
Maggie.
Don't worry. Everyone knows I'm going to watch the Downton Abbey sequel because she's probably going to die in it. So I got you, Maggie. Still love you as Professor McGonagall.
Just can't be in CW the movie.
That is also when the CW dies, they should make like a you know how after Scary Movie they made like superhero movie. They should make
Yes.
a CW the movie. Oh my gosh, I'm writing that too.
Oh,
I'm
you
stoked.
need to
Okay.
you are the person to write that.
You
for
guys, I haven't
sure.
had any ideas in a while. You're getting me pretty hyped.
You got it, man.
Okay.
That's good shit.
I'm going to do a quick summary of this movie. All right, Black Swan, which is what we watched apparently. Natalie Portman is dancing as a white swan, lots of arm flapping and toe tapping. Breakfast is half a grapefruit with her mom. Ballet dressing rooms are for gossip and toe cracking. Turns out Portman, a.k.a. Nina, is only good at being white and not appropriating black swans. I don't see Honey Boo Boo, but this is clearly a lost episode of Dance Moms. Vincent Cassell is out here teaching surprise by sexually assaulting. Nina got the swan queen part, even though she didn't deserve it. Her shoulder blade bruise is getting worse, but not as bad as the parental emotional manipulation. Nina stalks and lurks the new girl, Mila, a.k.a. Mila Kunis, who catches her daydreaming about leprosy. Winona Ryder is hammered and accusing Nina of fallacious ladder climbing. Cassell, a.k.a. Tomas or Toma, makes uncomfortable conversation and encourages homework high schoolers would only dream of. Nina goes to work downtown and seems to almost finish the job when she realizes her mom is sleeping in the chair by her twin bed. Winona walks right into traffic. Thomas Leroy says Nina needs more passion and gropes her to teach her seduction. This is problematic, I think. Nina bleeds her own blood. Nina is 28 and finally rebelling to have dinner and clubbing with Lily. Bucky Barnes has no game. Mama has gone full abusive, and Nina has an erotic fantasy involving Lily anamorphing into a swan and some asphyxiation. She is late and hungover for rehearsal. Lily is announced as alternate, and Nina is having full-on hallucinations of a swan man doing intercourse. Winona is stabbing herself, and it looks then like it's Portman, but this is the part where I don't know what's real the rest of the movie. At home, Nina tears up her mom's creepy-ass Hey Arnold-level shrine. Black feathers come out of her shoulder wound that's definitely real. Nina is full batshit fighting Mommy and refuses to miss opening night. Act 1, she gets dropped. Intermission, she has a Gollum Smeagol meltdown and stabs Lily. Act 2, incredible performance, perfect. Turns into a literal demon Black Swan on stage, but nobody notices. Never mind, she didn't actually stab Lily. It was her the whole time. She pulls glass out of herself. She bleeds her way through the rest of the dance, has a spectacular death, and nobody notices the giant blood spot until she is literally dying. Yeah, that's it.
Doing intercourse is now how I'm going to refer to it always.
Look, I know you guys were taught abstinence in your schools here, but when I was raised, we got the real vernacular. Okay, Colorado sex ed was legit.
She's been doing intercourse,
which is why we're happy to announce the next podcast on our now prestigious podcast network, Doing Intercourse with Mitchell Marshall.
I'm going to be commentating all of the Doing Intercourse that you can find on the internet. Send your suggestions to doingintercourse@gmail.com. Our website for this one is only on the dark web, the dark Instagram as well.
Yeah, make sure to add doingintercourse@gmail.com to your safe senders list so that you can receive our newsletter.
You can send me all the forwards that say if I don't forward it on, I'll die in 7 days. Because then I'll just do intercourse for those 7 days. All right, so Black Swan. I didn't want to look up like all the... There's a couple of metaphors or like hidden meanings I think are clear, or at least clear to me, and I'm pretty dumb, so they're probably clear, or I'm just wrong. But I'm curious, what subtext do you think is the most critical that the director is trying to get off through this like super intense psychological sexual portrait of an artist and a competitor?
We're just going to get right into it. That was like the biggest question.
Go hard or go home.
Here we go.
I do want to say that when I was reading up on, I can't even pronounce his damn name.
Darren Aronofsky.
Yeah,
close enough.
I keep wanting to say Alfonso Cuarón. So
they're friends.
Darren Aronofsky, and apparently his sister did ballet, which was a big influence for him making this movie. So I'm like, man, what did you observe your sister fucking doing that whole time? Your opinion of ballerinas and possibly your sister is in a pretty fucked up place, which I found fascinating. That like this was the movie that came out of those memories of his.
Is his sister okay?
But I think I don't know. You hear a lot of people who see like the movie Whiplash, which has some tonal matches to this movie. And they're like, that's not how you be good at jazz. And I'm sure there's lots of ballerinas who feel the same way about this movie.
Tell those people to go watch La La Land.
But
the real jazz movie.
But I feel like, I mean, A, I feel like they missed the point. But B, I feel like you're going to find shit like that in kind of any niche field, I feel like. The more elite, the more snobbish it gets, the more just like... Honestly, like to reach that level of success, which this movie explores, is you have to be a little bit crazy and willing to sacrifice some things and relationships that, the normal person, for lack of a better term, would not be willing to, I guess. And so I think there is some. I'm trying to leave it open enough that we can talk about other things. I'm sorry, I'm probably covering too many things,
No.
but like I think there's a bit of a critique on that of just like these elitism fields and. Obviously the cost of success to achieve in them, and just the bullshit that goes on in them, I think is part of it.
Well, it shares a lot of DNA with some more serious sports movies that kind of expose those toxic relationships. Like I made a joke about Dance Moms, but it's not a joke that a lot of people invest a ton of time and money into their children doing something like this, and sometimes it can erase their childhood or ruin their childhood. And finding a healthy balance is great, but the cost of greatness, the cost of getting to the point, because there's only so many people who make a living as a ballerina or a dancer in general. Like, it is not as just dollar for dollar productive with all the lessons and things you're putting into it. And if the kid becomes as invested and that becomes the primary focus of their life, like, I know that's only one aspect of this, but it kind of exposes why she starts to spin out, and her envy for someone who is insanely talented as Mila Kunis's character, Lily, who doesn't seem to have that same relationship with the art and seems to have a lot healthier balance and perspective on things. Yeah. And I think about Mother a lot when I think about this, and that's Aronofsky's more recent film. He might have one more recent than that.
I think it's his most recent, yeah.
And that is also about, I mean, it's apparently a religion and world disaster allegory, or like pollution. I don't know. But there's clearly a relationship between a creator and their piece. And in this, I want to know, because he dated Jennifer Lawrence after. Yeah, I want to know, how toxic is he? Because he's clearly reflecting to some degree his art into this movie as well. And so, but you're right. Anytime that you have that sole focus, like the things that it brings out, it can be really disgusting.
Yeah. Well, and I think the one of the things I found myself thinking about a lot more this time as I watched it as well was the relationship of I just forgot Natalie Portman's character's name, but Nina, thank you. Nina, like, her relationship with her, like, quote unquote art is so intermixed and like polluted by the relationship she has with her mother and with the director
Thomas.
Thomas, thank you. And there are points in this movie, and I think it's done this way on purpose, and maybe I'm the only person that like saw it this way because I missed something, but there was a point in the movie I'm like, I honestly don't know why she wants to dance. Like, it feels like a thing where it's very much like it's more about like winning those relationships, or like getting validation through those relationships, and the tool that she has to use is ballet, which it's really, it makes it even more sad to me, I guess. But I think like those relationships highlight so much of like Nina's struggle, and also of Winona Ryder's character. Like, her character is very sad and really scary to me, honestly. Like, every time she's on screen, I was so nervous.
Winona Ryder, maybe underrated.
She should do something with Netflix.
Yeah,
I think Netflix could use her.
Quite the comeback.
Stranger things have happened.
Hey. Oh boy.
Anyways.
Yeah, just I feel like with the idea of there being this like white swan and black swan metaphor throughout it, and these two different sides, and then we kind of see Nina's personality, a different part of her come out. I feel like that's also kind of a messaging of when you're pushing too hard, like when you put all your eggs in one basket, I guess, like when you're putting too much of yourself on one side, there has to be balance in life. And I think that is kind of it. Because you look at Mila Kunis's character, which, I agree with Mitchell, is like, I guess, more healthy than Nina's, but I don't think she's necessarily in like the healthiest spot.
Sure.
Because I think when you are drugging other people's drinks, there's a level of unhealthy there. So I think that's also mirroring her of maybe a little bit too far on the other side of the spectrum, right? So I think there is this kind of balance. Otherwise, you'll end up killing yourself type of thing in the end.
I do want to talk about performances really quick, because I think they are fantastic in this movie. Yeah. I think Natalie Portman's performance in this movie is like one of those things that I feel like it's a great example at times of like her making it look really easy, and it's like incredible, like the stuff she does, and like those switches, like that white and black swan side of her feels so distinct and so different, and I'm always impressed by her performance in this. I think it's really great.
Her and the moments of her, she has a frenetic insecurity about her all the time, which makes it all the more amazing when she turns full Black Swan, but even that her White Swan can be so well done. And then in her moments of pure madness, because just when I looked this up, there was all this like, are we sure Natalie Portman was good in Black Swan? Yeah, we are. We don't need to second guess that. Like, I get that. I think people think that going insane is an easy thing to do when you're acting, but to feel this intense and have that movement between those emotions and be manifesting it differently between every different relationship that she has, not to mention she's dealing with, like, she had to do so much of that ballet herself because there's only so much you can cover up through doubles. She also ended up marrying the choreographer who plays her scene partner and one of the ballet trainers. So good for you, Natalie. But it is crazy to think all the things that she had to put together on screen. And I think when you look around her, each character really is serving a purpose to her. I don't know if we need to see multiple sides of those characters. Like, there's the question is, what's the guy's name? It's already left me. Thomas. I was going for the acronym. God, I just think of him as I have to. I'm really bad with names lately. It's all the meth. I also just think of him as the guy from Ocean's 12.
Oh God.
But his his emotions and strategy, that is like so indicative of like the frankly, the Me Too movement. Just like, this guy has so much power, and his power lasts. He can see a Winona Ryder and a Natalie Portman and someone who's 5 years younger continue to go through. Well, like many things, like when you think about gymnastics or ice skating or dancing, like to some degree, there is an age limit of where you turn into a coach. There's something else, but like, you can only be in your prime for so long. And for him to own that studio and manipulate that situation, and then for her mom to be completely, I'm a little curious, like, what happened to the dad. I mean, I think I know. He's probably dead somewhere, or just was like, I can't do this shit. But even with Mila Kunis, who, like, we see her fun, I don't want to say fun loving, but her, like, this blasé, where, like, she probably resorts to drugs and partying as her outlet, but it's, I don't know, is that more or less positive? But she has this freedom that Natalie Portman doesn't have because she wants to satisfy these other people so bad. Which is her only form of fulfillment, which is scary because she reaches perfection at the end of the film, and I presume she dies, and that's like, what else did she have to do in life? Whereas Mila Kunis is only playing like her like psychosexual. She's just making her second guess herself and undermining her. And I don't know if there's depth to all those, but the way they each have a relationship with her character, I think makes her performance all the more impeccable.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think the performances in this movie are great. I don't think you can question that. I will say, watching it this time, I got about halfway through and I was like, we got another half, huh? We got another half a movie to go.
And it's less than 2 hours.
It is. Yeah, it is.
It
feels long. And I think part of it, I realized this time, is, man, those cards are laid out very early in this movie. And I don't know if you blame that on that those tropes are so familiar. That kind of like losing your mind and questioning reality is so many movies like that. But it does feel like pretty well trod ground at this point. And like, there were times when I was like, I get it. Let's just move on. I don't need to see her suck at dancing again. I know that this is taking a toll on her. You know what I mean? Like, there were moments like that where I found myself this time being like, let's get there. Let's get to the stuff, you know?
Well, and I hadn't seen this. I thought I had seen it after theaters, but now I'm really questioning if I had. So it's maybe been 10 years, or I think it was the end of 2010, so 9 years, whatever.
Sure.
I was forgetting the progression of like, when does she start to really start see things? When does she really start pulling feathers out and having these true things? And it drags a little bit, but it's actually done at I don't want to say a good pace because it's a slow pace, but the intervals make sense. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the repetition of it is difficult. And if you've ever been around the dance world, or like you've been around the dance theater world, like, it is a weird internal society. And so like, those things do get so repetitious, and it is always so cutthroat. But it absolutely, like, once you already know the ending, because it was nice to appreciate it, because I was kind of trying to figure out if it was science fiction the first time, like if she was or if it was all in her head. And I know I was 18. Okay, forgive me a little bit.
I had worse questions about movies at 18. That's not a problem.
But this time to just kind of know what was going to happen on one hand really let me watch it in a different way. On the other hand, I was like, I'm ready. Yeah. I'm ready for her to go. Yeah. I actually thought Mila Kunis's part was very different when I looked back at it too, like the way she intervals and comes in and the way she kind of prods at that story before she has a larger effect and then the ending itself. But it was still surprising and good, but you're right in that it is a hard watch.
If we think about, we did watch Perfect Blue on this podcast, which has a lot of similarities.
Which I do want to talk about.
I feel like that movie actually does like some of the hallucination stuff, especially in the earlier stuff, a lot better. Yeah. I feel like this movie, I still enjoy this movie. I still love those moments in this movie, but I feel like kind of going along with what Tyler was saying of how it's all kind of played out very early on, like explaining everything. I think that's kind of a problem I had on this viewing is like it felt so often when anytime there was a moment where she was hallucinating something that it was kind of like looking at the camera and being like, look how weird this is. Yeah. Like, isn't this, aren't you so lost? And I'm like, no, this is very clear what you want to say. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's because, like you said, so many movies have come out since 2010 that use all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I feel like Perfect Blue did it better to where I was questioning kind of the whole time. I'm like, okay, what is this person real? Yeah. Like, is this situation actually happening? Is this a hallucination? And part of that was because I knew it was connected to Black Swan, that I was guessing all those things. But I still feel like it does it better because I probably would have thought those things all were real without guessing them in that movie versus Black Swan.
I think one of the things too that Perfect Blue does, and I feel like we can have this conversation just because we watched it so recently, like it was like 6 months ago, 4 months ago, a year ago, who fucking knows? But like, anyways, but I feel like Perfect Blue is so visually striking, like throughout its entire run, like the way shots are framed, the way that they reveal that information, the way that they use the repetitiveness of situations, like those shots of her in her bedroom and the fish tank, like those are used frequently, but like I feel like all of those are used more effectively, even to the point where like in Black Swan there were a couple shots that I was like, oh, that looks really good, and I'm like, and then I was like looking back at stuff in Perfect Blue and I'm like, oh, this like actually feels like maybe a specific homage to stuff from Perfect Blue. But there, I feel like earlier in Black Swan, they do a much better job of like very interesting angles, very interesting transitions, which they use a little bit later as well. But I feel like the first act of this has a lot of that, and then it settles into less of it, I guess.
I totally forgot about the transitions in Perfect Blue and how cool they were.
Yeah, and that's like something I thought about a lot. Was I think that's something that Perfect Blue kind of nails throughout its runtime, and this maybe falters for me a little bit. But Justin, this was your first time, I know.
It was.
I don't know, like we've talked a lot about length and pacing. I don't know if you felt any of that on your first viewing.
I definitely did. Yeah, okay. We had to pause with like 20 minutes left, I think, just to take care of some stuff. And I was like, man, we were like right at the end, right? But it was like, there's still another 20 minutes that I got to sit through. And that, I mean, it is the end of the movie at that point, basically, but you have 20 minutes to sit through. So yeah, I definitely felt the length. Just like kind of in general, I mean, you guys have basically said a lot of what I've been thinking. I don't know. I feel kind of in a weird spot to talk about like how this movie makes me feel when it comes to like art and everything, because my experience as a performer, like and maybe this is just like how privileged I have been in my situation, like I feel like for me personally, and granted I am not a master of really anything, but like for music and stuff and studying music and everything, like I never felt like I had to like lose myself in order to like achieve something artistic or great by any means. Like I felt like I could, like I still to this day feel like I could contribute something worthwhile in art if I wanted to, and not have to go to the lengths that this kind of is like critiquing. Like, and I know that definitely exists and is problematic no matter what art form it is, like movies, music, dance, whatever, and like the elitism that exists and stuff like that. But like for me personally, I've never really felt like that is required, and so like seeing a critique of something that I'm like, man, this is just, to me it feels like it's like this is just a problem with shitty people. Like like it's not necessarily like this is not an indication of what success is. Like you can be successful in whatever you're doing and not be a terrible person, or I don't know. Like it's all convoluted and tied up in my head about what I'm feeling and stuff. But yeah, like one specific instance, like there's the trope of the director who is a total asshole and has all of the power and everything. And obviously, like the critiques and everything are valid, and that's a real issue. Obviously, the Me Too movement is huge and continues to be problematic to this day. But at the same time, like, I don't know, like that character just feels like there's so many good people as well that are in positions to help have success in art. And I don't know, I'm kind of rambling at this point, but like J.K. Simmons' character in Whiplash, which I have not seen, but I know enough about it, and like I was a jazz musician, so I'm pretty familiar with the movie. Like it just feels really overdone at this point to me, when there's so many people out there who are curating and nurturing environments where really amazing things are happening, and you don't have to be an asshole to
I think that's like a question in Hollywood though. Like you talk about people there are actors who everyone knows will be, it might be because they're method and that's difficult, or they're just assholes because they need things a certain way to do their art. And I think you hear about it more with actors, but I'm sure it's just as common with director. Well, we know it's common with directors, but you hear about it more, and it might be Darren himself. I've definitely heard some crazy things, but I think the general vibe, just that like, at what cost is an artist bullshit worth it? Mm-hmm. And I think dance is probably an environment, especially when you're a young girl who's influenced by your parents and a toxic coach, which, like you said, there's wonderful ways to approach and grow in art. But I think in our generation, it's kind of two minds. On one hand, I think we're a little bit work smarter, not harder. And that has probably done some good stuff for mental health and happiness. And it's probably lost us some things compared to the last generation too. Or it's like how they say a lot of the best athletes are 3-sport athletes, but there's all these kids that are focusing on one sport and they're going to hire a private coach just to be a pitching coach, where it's like, let the kid play these sports and grow organically. Like, yes, we have way more knowledge about how to develop yourself, but it's kind of a back and forth. It seems like that art and to some degree athletics, you're always choosing between your level of happiness. And she's 28 in this movie or whatever, and I'm actually 28 now, and I was just thinking, am I sad that I haven't reached some sort of pinnacle? But it's like at the cost of the day-to-day happiness and like screwing up and all that shit. Like I used to be really a little frustrated that I didn't pick one thing. Like I didn't know like I've worked in business, I've worked in sports media, like I've dabbled in the arts, and I'm always like, well, what if I would have just dedicated myself to athletics or to the arts? Could I be a lot further along? And sometimes I'm a little frustrated, and I'm like, wow, you know what? For my mental health, I'm okay being in this basement doing this podcast with you guys. Like I am so happy in comparison, but you're right in that like I would never choose that or put my kids in that position. And I think the examination has now been done so many times, but ballet is also a very specific world.
And like, to be fair, like I'm not saying at all that like this kind of stuff doesn't need to be like examined, like you said.
Oh yeah, of course. I think we don't also know how rampant it is.
Right. So. Yeah, definitely. And like I recognize, like I speak from a position of extreme privilege when I'm talking about these things as well.
I think a big difference too is that like these types of stories are usually people who are going to be like want to be the best. Mm-hmm. It's always like this is the New York ballet, right? Which I think this movie also has some particular jabs at like New York elitism, but like they're always like, and like in Whiplash, it's a very prestigious, you know. I'm sure in some point in this movie he's like, some of these are the best musicians in New York, which means they're the best musicians in the world. Mm-hmm. Like,
are Berkeley and Juilliard both in New York? I don't think Berkeley actually is.
But yeah, anyway, they like they're always like some very prestigious group, and they want to be the best. And I think it's not necessarily. I think the price of success is the wrong term for it. At least for these movies, it's the price of being the best. Yeah. And is that worth it? Right. So I don't know. I think that's a really good point because I think we haven't experienced it. But like, I mean, I'm definitely not. I know for a fact I'm not the best at anything that I do, and so I haven't experienced that myself. But I can't imagine going to like, even just in my experience of going to a shitty school for animation. I had several professors break down in tears because they're like, you don't know what it takes to like make it in this industry. It's like, there's no unions. You are worked to death during crunch time. There were days I slept under my desk for weeks at a time for 2 hours, got up and kept drawing. And I'm like, oh yeah, what did you do? Oh, I worked on the Nerf gun video game. Like, these guys were so much more talented than me.
I mean, the Nerf light gun video game for PC, like back from like 2003, is actually incredible.
Well, I know a guy.
Fuck, I'm gonna have him sign my Nerf light gun.
These guys were insanely talented. Like, I was like, I can never be as good as you, and that's kind of why I left. I was like, I can't see myself ever reaching your level, and if the fact that the best thing you did was that, and you killed yourself and your family relationships to do it, like, that sucks. Mm-hmm. And I don't want any part of that. And so I got the hell out of there. But like that exists in something just as simple as that for like someone who's currently teaching at UVU in the least successful animation program in the Valley. The best thing they worked on was the Nerf gun video game. It's like, that's crazy to me.
Well, I think, I mean, we kind of talked about this with Birdman too. You know what I mean? Like that. I think on some level, there are so many of these stories about the best or people trying to be the best. And it still does like just fetishize that a little bit of like, if you bleed, you're going to get there. If you know what I mean? Like all of that. And, I can't stress enough. It's fucking bullshit. I feel like that mindset is born out of your value coming from an external source. Yeah. And like, that to me is the problem with this it's like, if you want to work hard, if that's what you want to do and you can do it, fucking do it. I don't give a shit. Like, if you want to do that and not get married, fuck it, do it. Like, but if like, I don't know, you have to, I think at some point, like for me personally, that journey has been like, it's okay for me to value certain things that other people don't value, and it's better for me to value those things and know that I value those things and structure my life in a way that allows me to continue to value those things. It's better for me than if I was busting my ass trying to write the next big screenplay or whatever that is, you know what I mean? And like that's the thing is I'm like, it's kind of that mentality of like, the best way to really get better at something is to do it a lot and for a long time. And so you need to know where your boundaries are and allow yourself to live your life and do your art in a way that means from 20 years from now, you can still be doing that art, but you're just going to be 20 years better at it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
That's such a mentally healthy place to be.
Sure.
Whereas for her, she's looking for validity. I guess to some degree, her self-satisfaction is really important because if you're the best ballerina in the world, nobody knows your name. As someone who pays attention to the arts and even to the dance world, I couldn't tell you who the best ballerina is in the world. Tyler's going to Google it, but there's not a competition. There's like, you are the star of New York or Paris or London's ballet. That's cool, and I'm sure you make good money. And hopefully, you are happy. But she was specifically looking for perfection and such validity, and that's the thing. Like, you definitely need to like have a level of self-love, and it would be lovely to make a great living with your art. But for me, I wouldn't do that at the cost of like family.
Yeah. Or this podcast.
Or this. Yeah. Absolutely. You guys don't understand all the things I could have done if I had my Sunday nights free. But in general, it's just weird that she's
making another podcast.
You're not wrong.
Doing like, intercourse.
I like attention and I know it. So the fact I almost am like, oh, it'd be so toxic for me to chase fame. Yeah. And like, it is weird that she is chasing after something where you get the applause at the end of the night. And there's a hierarchy, I'm sure, of people who give a shit about ballet. Yeah. But in general, it's such a specific finding self-value It makes me highly uncomfortable. This got a little more personal
It did,
in that last round, but
I mean,
it's an interesting way to look at it because you're right. It's pretty similar to Birdman, but we've gone in a completely different direction. I mean, they both turn into birds.
Yeah, that is true. I actually didn't make that connection until you said that, and I feel like an idiot.
That's what we should do for the next.
Listen, if you want to be really fucking good at art, you have to know at some point you're going to turn into a bird.
That's the only way to fly.
I do think Tyler has something prepared for us.
Yes.
We have no idea what it is.
I'm so excited.
so after I watched this, I'm like, man, this is ringing something that I've seen before. What is it? So I'm going to tell you how the Black Swan and the Charlotte Hornets are two peas in the same pod.
Fast forward 15 minutes and 27 seconds if you want to go to recommendations.
I hope there's a lot of Muggsy Bogues references.
There are not.
God damn it.
We're going to start with Michael Jordan. And I'm just going to point out
The greatest Charlotte Hornet of all time.
first a few bullet points.
Hey, Muggsy Bogues would like some words with you.
A few bullet points of how Michael Jordan is connected to the Black Swan universe. Michael Jordan's favorite building to play in was the Garden in New York City. The Black Swan takes place in New York City. The 1984 draft was when Michael Jordan was drafted. He was the third pick behind Hakeem Olajuwon and Sam Bowie. Now, Natalie Portman was born in 1981, which is 3 years before the 1984 NBA draft. So he's the third pick in the NBA draft 3 years before Natalie Portman is now born. Coincidence? Fuck yeah. Not. No.
Wait, 3 years after Natalie Portman was born, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, And Michael Jordan's dad was murdered. This is represented in the film by the fact that Nina doesn't have a dad. Michael Jordan made shit up to be better. There's that part in The Last Dance documentary where he talks about that. I can't remember which Orlando Magic player it was, but he's like, he came up to me after the game and was like, "Nice game, Mike." And that just,
Yeah.
From then on out, it was personal. And, but no, then it was revealed that he made that shit up to make himself play better, which is, in the movie all over the place. She thinks Nina is like, coming to her apartment, like getting into her head and making her sleep in, it's there, man. And, anyway, here's an interesting one. Thomas, which in English is Thomas.
Oh my God.
And so if we're speaking English here, Thomas Leroy is her main antagonist, someone she has to achieve some level of dominance over to progress. Isaiah Thomas.
Or Thomas, Isaiah.
Isaiah Thomas was the asshole on the Pistons who Michael Jordan had to overcome, who kept getting beat down by the bad boy Pistons until he finally beat him to eventually become, his Ernest, the best. Anyway, Winona Ryder is Clyde Drexler.
I hope that's where that was going to end. We're just going to move on to the next one.
Because the guy who's been in the league a while, who had to make room for the new guy. Plot twist, though. Jordan is actually Thomas, and Phil Jackson is actually Nina. Because Thomas is based on George Balanchine, co-founder of the New York City Ballet. He was a control freak. Michael Jordan was a control freak. He wanted to be the best out of, he wanted the best out of his performance, his performers, at any cost, his teammates, sure. Right? So much like Thomas, he was pushing them, being an asshole, doing some mischievous shit to get them to be at their best. He also played for the Bulls. Bull is similar to the word bully. Thomas is a bully who bullies Nina around. Nina inadvertently kills herself at the end of the movie. Phil Jackson was driven into retirement seemingly at his own hand. Reinsdorf and Krause were kept trying to get rid of him for the rebuild, right? And in this way also symbolizes Winona Ryder. But in The Last Dance, we learned that Reinsdorf had a meeting with Phil and offered him one more year, and he turned it down, figuratively committing suicide. Anyway, the Charlotte Hornets, how we're going to get there, right?
Yeah, I forgot that that's where we were fucking going with this.
Is symbolic for the eventual symbolic death caused by the Black Swan is matching the Charlotte Hornets, or the obsession to perfect one's craft. So, with his 6th and final championship, Michael Jordan performed his perfect Swan Lake routine, but at what cost? Jordan eventually went on to own the NBA team, the Charlotte Bobcats. The NBA team known as Charlotte Bobcats, and changed their name to the Charlotte Hornets in 2014. This team with 2 names is represented in the film by the concept of the dual natures of the Swan. Now, what other NBA team has changed their name somewhat recently and beats the shit out of the Hornets on a regular basis? The New Orleans Pelicans. The 2 teams have faced each other a total of 31 regular games this season. Total. Sorry, not this season. Sorry. 31 regular games over the time of their existence. New Orleans has won 22 of those 31 games, and Charlotte has only won 9 of them. The Pelicans are... Okay. Pelicans, the bird, are... are of the phylum known as Chordata and of the Avis class. Another member of the Avis class in the Chordata phylum, the Swan. That's right. Michael Jordan is being figuratively killed because he is the owner of the Charlotte Hornets by a representation of aquatic birds. Now, things get really interesting when you discern that the Pelicans used to be called the Hornets. In fact, the Hornets started in Charlotte, moved to New Orleans in 2002, then freed up the name for Michael Jordan's Hornets. So it's like they are 2 entities of the same team, much like the Black and White Swan. That means Jordan's own team is killing itself, trying to succeed, much like Nina's character in the movie. The Charlotte Hornets are Michael Jordan's death and the cost of his success.
Wow.
I really thought the flu and the stabbing yourself at halftime was gonna. But that was impressive. You called out a random record between 2 shitty teams. Then you went right into phylums, kingdom, phylum, subgenre. I don't know.
Subgenre. Yep, that's the next thing.
Okay. So, 6th grade science. Thanks, Miss Terry. Wow.
So yeah, that was the introduction of our new segment, Movies Are NBA by Tyler. Look forward to that every week from now on.
I can't wait for next week.
Don't give me this green light.
I'm pretty sure there are no lights on this road, buddy. Just you are good to go.
Oh boy. So Black Swan. We went through performances, meanings. I do like it. I think in the end, like, how often do I want to watch a movie like that? Probably not much, but I think it's interesting. It's well done. I like it better than Mother as far as allegorical batshit things that he does.
Yeah, I actually want to talk about it because there is a lot of like thematic consistency in a lot of Darren Aronofsky's movies. Yeah. I don't know how much of it you guys have seen, like how many of his movies.
I haven't seen Noah, but I've seen The Wrestler, and I think that's the one you want to go with, and that might have been the movie preceding this. Like 08 and 09?
No, it was after, I think.
Oh, no, it was?
No, you're right. It was before. It was
could
like
be
2008,
right.
I think.
I have no recollection.
Anyways,
of when The Wrestler came out.
no, I actually do. I do like The Wrestler more, but The Wrestler does not. It's not like a psychological. It's a much more kind of grounded look.
It's much more on the like this similar. Not a person being the best, but like a struggling performer and the psychology, the mental and emotional baggage.
Yeah. So I do. I like Black Swan. I feel like I've probably said more bad things about it in this episode than good, but I don't think it's a bad movie. But I just think if I was in the mood for a psychosexual horror film, this would not be my first choice. But yeah, I think Darren Aronofsky, like, I don't know, honestly, probably Perfect Blue. I watched this and I was like, I kind of want to watch Perfect Blue again. But like, I think that, I think Aronofsky, there are a lot of themes in Black Swan that are in a lot of his other films. Pi is another one that I thought of. I don't know if you guys have seen Pi. Kind of about a man who becomes obsessed with the number, pi, and it's shot in black and white. It's one of his earlier movies, but it's got a lot of similar things. The Wrestler is another one I thought of, and Mother I also thought of for sure. But I never want to watch Mother again, even though I can't stop fucking talking about it.
But like, give me 5 more years.
Yeah.
And then
that'll be our 10th anniversary show.
Yeah, okay.
Will be Mother.
Someone who really enjoys Emma Watson was like, hey guys, there's actually talent underneath these pretty bad adaptions. She's actually has a terrible batting average. That's fine. There's not much you could do there. Perks is fine, but like Noah, The Circle, like,
she's wonderful in Little Women.
Oh, you're
Absolutely
right. Actually,
wonderful in Little Women.
Yeah, underrated when you're working with probably the 2 like best up and coming actresses. By the way, Florence Pugh needs to work on her Instagram game. That's a side of the side. But yeah, she's literally working with like two of the hottest names. But yeah, she absolutely, that part is like, it felt very specific and well done, and a really good voice among all those sisters. Yeah, we should do a rewatch of that.
I love that movie. I don't know. I don't really have too many.
Did you have any more wrestler thoughts? I feel like we didn't get enough of it.
No, I mean, I maybe want to watch The Wrestler soon. Because I need to. I mean, The Wrestler is kind of the thing of like, what if you were at one time one of the best? What happens to you after that? And The Wrestler is actually based on a lot of some say that it's based on Jake the Snake Roberts, which makes sense if you look at Jake the Snake's career, which The Wrestler, if you think of The Wrestler as a story about Jake the Snake, it's actually much better because now Jake the Snake is in a really fucking good place and like on TV again and doing wrestling managing, and he's like at a very public like rehab process and like getting back on his feet, and he's really an awesome dude. But yeah, and also The Wrestler may be one of the only movies I ever really want to watch Mickey Rourke in. So that's another thing.
Iron Man 2?
Fuck Iron Man
9.5 weeks.
Sorry, Justin. I know that. Isn't Justin Hammer the character in Iron Man 2?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Man, Iron Man 2 is the worst fucking movie I've ever seen.
It's very bad.
Yeah, and like I think when people crap on Marvel movies, which I enjoyed the first time but never find rewatchable, there's only been a couple that I've really watched and been like, ugh, and one of them was Iron Man 2.
Yeah, Iron Man 2.
I'd take Thor 2 over Iron Man 2.
Wow,
any day. Speaking of Natalie Portman, who's coming back as Lady Thor, right? That's gonna be cool.
That's true, yeah.
Lady Thor.
I want to throw a couple shout outs to technical stuff, which I think sometimes we like to talk about, and maybe we're not qualified, but like the color in this movie is really simple. I usually don't like dark movies because I don't think you should have to have literal darkness to get across darkness. But I think this movie does a really good job of balancing it. I think obviously white and black play massive roles, like in the most obvious way.
Yeah, very obvious. Yeah.
But her innocence and like those light pinks, which are really common in ballet, and the overdone makeup, like they didn't screw up any technical aspects. And you talked about the cinematography at the beginning. I think the rehearsal cinematography, especially when they're in close-ups, you can't see the dance. You're seeing her face or just their arms moving, or you're seeing through between the two dancers, you're seeing the Thomas' reactions. I think it is so smart and such a good rhythm of close-ups and pulling back and letting you see that performance space. And there was one other.
That spinning camera is really cool, where she keeps like spinning, stopping. It's like first person.
And then Justin, you were saying like you kind of paused before that last 20 minutes. It has that lull like 2/3 the way through, but that ending, I don't even remember the music. I'm sure it is like the Swan Lake music, but the last 20 minutes has a pace to it and a freneticness, which is really painful because of what she's going through. And the first time you watch it, even if you're not trying to figure it out, you're confused. Because you're going through her psychological process, which is a pretty impressive piece of art to even put you in those shoes. But I think the downhill of the actual performance is, and well, first she flips out on her mom right before it. I think that whole frenetic ending is done really well. Because some movies just don't know how to end. That's true. This movie and like her falling and it being over that's such a good ending.
Sure. Yeah.
Such a good ending.
I think the gore in this movie is some of the most disturbing gore for me, like at least hardest to watch for me, because it's like
hangnail always.
Yeah, it's like simple, like everyday stuff taken to extremes that like is so hard to watch. Like I've seen a man's arms get cut off with a disc grinder in Watchmen, and I can easily stomach that over that hangnail. Like that is
Yeah, there's a few because when it has like the ripples going on her body. Like there's some disturbance to it, but then it usually signified something to come, and or it was just a result of what had happened. And it's those little moments, and then because her mind is switching back and forth, like there's so many times her face. I think her face interplays with Winona Ryder's, her mother's, Lily's. Like she is having so much going on in her head, and it's usually accompanied by this physical pain. And there's like the blood in the bathtub. Like it is visceral. I also wanted to give one more shout out. Like, there's probably elements of this movie, like we touched on Me Too because it's obvious. There's probably elements of this movie just being much more about being female, and I don't want to not credit those and not talk about him being an asshole. I think we are all males, and it's a little harder for us to understand some of those, and I'd much rather just say, hey, we don't know, than say something that is incorrect, because to me, we're not educated on. So we, Gwen's here in spirit smacking us all if we say something stupid. Don't worry about it. But I just wanted to say, like, that is, I'm not the most, like, we need to talk about, like, the bigger issue here, but I just know this is a very, like, interesting movie because it's also by a guy who made it may not be the best person. So it's really interesting to look at. He wrote and directed these themes that I think are much better probably examined by females, and so we probably didn't delve into that enough. But overall, like, such a well-crafted movie that definitely has its flaws in it, something that's been examined again and again now, but really good and such a good performance. And I can't believe you haven't seen Whiplash. Sorry. That was
God damn it, Justin.
I mean, I think before we go, we do need to just give the one final shout out to Gabrielle Mahone.
Right.
Production unit, excuse me.
Suck my feet.
Production supervisor on Black Swan, which do we even need to mention? If you watch this movie, you saw her work. It speaks for itself.
Beautiful production.
I honestly had to look at what a production supervisor did.
Could you summarize
But then I was like, but then I actually did pay attention watching it in this movie. I'm like, oh, she had to, like, hire dancers.
Yeah.
She had to, I'm sure she set up, like, I don't remember how long it was. Natalie Portman and Mila Kunis did some ballet training before this movie. I'm sure she set that all up and had to get, all the studio and everything. Like, I'm sure it was not, I don't know. It's something I don't pay attention. I mean, I do, but I never know, like, who it belongs to and how spread out it is.
You're not necessarily thinking the logistics.
Yeah, it's usually I'm watching a movie. I'm like, oh man, I bet this was, like, hard to set up or whatever.
Yeah.
But I never think, like, someone had to, like, make sure, like, the funds were in order and the payment got transferred and, like,
that. There are so many umbrellas of the artistic heads that fall under her that they have to deal with budget and space and time, and she has to make approvals for things. Like, we kind of glance over the spaces in this movie. There's not very many physical spaces, but they all work so well. They serve such a purpose. I like, especially I don't want to say especially, but to me, the dressing room, you only see it a few times, but it is bright, which is a little different for this, and so indicative of, like, this spotlight that's on you and the toxicity around it. Like, I would like to think that she helped craft all those little things by being in charge of those things.
Yes.
All right.
Go,
Any other last Black Swan things? Okay. Before we go to recommendations, Tyler, what are we going to watch next week, and who is our spotlighted human?
So, speaking of locations, the thing about a location you're shooting a movie at is it's usually a different location than the actors usually live at. And between those two locations is a lot of other locations. And how do you get from one location to another location? That's a question best left to Stephen R. Hammond, transportation captain on Black Swan. Now, we're going to go back to early in Stephen R. Hammond's career, where he was in the transportation department for the second best Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie from the early 90s. Fuck it. The second best Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie ever.
Live action?
Any. Now, I'll go
Isn't
movie.
Isn't that TMNT cartoon decent?
I mean, the cartoon's good, but no movies. No
Okay,
movies
okay.
out of that cartoon, I'm pretty sure. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, is what we're going to be watching next week. I am very excited.
Aren't we all? Who knew that you could carve out a 30-year career consistently getting jobs on it as part of productions, managing the transportation? That is longevity, Mr. Hammond.
I mean, thinking about logistics, that's
I wonder
a
if there's
shit
like
ton
a
of stuff.
transportation first mate and a transportation navigator, and a
We will-
Transportation
research
poop
and find
deck?
out.
transportation cabin boy.
I wanted one. This is a Black Swan. The only note I actually wrote down was that this movie cost $13 million to make and made $330 million. Shit.
Talk
Like,
about
turning a
investments.
freaking profit. Anyway, that covered the whole Oscar campaign because that cost $100 million. So we are going to be right back and we'll give you some recommendations. Welcome back to the Rewatchers on the Pod. This is our recommendation section where we tell you what is so good that you can't miss it. Tyler Harris, why don't you go first?
So I am going to recommend a series on Netflix. It's a documentary series called Home Game. and it's just 8 episodes, and each episode focuses on like an obscure sport from all over the world. And the first episode, I can't remember what it's called. It's a rugby type sport that's played in.
Is it Gaelic football?
No, it's in Italy.
Oh.
And to play the game, you have to have been born in Florence, Italy. It's like it's really insane. You should watch it.
This is on my list.
Yeah, it's really good. They're really fun. There's also an episode in Austin, Texas, where they talk about Texas roller derby, and an episode where they talk about Congolese professional wrestling. Which has voodoo ritual elements to it, and I'll leave it at that. You should go watch it. But it's really great. Like, the production value is very high, and I really love the structure because it basically crams everything I love about sports documentaries into like 23 minutes, where it's like, here's the rules of the game. Here are 2 guys who fucking love playing this game, and then like the last 10 minutes is like, here's like a highlight reel of one specific match that is like culminating story of these 2 guys competing or something like that. So it's just a really great balance of like the human stories of that, but then also just showing you exactly what this sport is, and it's crazy. It's really good. It's really well done. So I've really enjoyed that. The other thing I'm going to recommend is a video game I've been playing called Paper Mario something the Origami King. I can't remember what the subtitle for that is, but it's the only Paper Mario game on the Switch, so it'll be easy to find. And it's really delightful. The shocking thing to me is that the writing is really incredible. Like, I was talking to you guys about it a little bit the other night, of just like, they write these really self-aware and wonderful jokes. But like, I was playing today, and basically the story is that this is the Mario universe where everyone is just a sheet of paper. So it's like a 2D Mario and a 3D world. And this guy comes, he's like, I'm going to fold everything into origami. Fuck you. 3D is where it's at. And so like everyone's scared. But basically, like, there's all the minions, for like Bowser's minions, that are now like totally like, Mario, go fuck up this Origami King. And they're like, we would do it, but like, what do you want us to do? Just walk at him in a straight line? And I was like, that's a really good specific Mario joke that I really appreciate. But yeah, it's really great, and definitely recommend it. So that's what I've been doing this week.
Justin, what have you been doing?
I've been raising a puppy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I have not had.
Do you recommend it?
If you like pets, yes. I like my new puppy. We got her last week. It's been a week and 2 days now. But I haven't had time to really do much. I did manage to squeeze in a few more episodes of Dora Hey Doro, so that's my plug again this week. I have 4 episodes left of the season, which I'll probably one night hopefully just be able to get it all finished up. But definitely recommend that. There's a baseball episode about halfway through the season that is really, really good. And man, the humor in this show is just fantastic. And yeah, I don't know. That's like 3 weeks in a row now. I think we've talked about it, or 3 podcasts in a row.
I'm going to talk about it for the rest of my life. I fucking love the show.
Yeah, it's great. Definitely check that out.
I literally bought like 2 bags of frozen gyoza because of this show. And I've been eating gyoza every day now.
Yeah, I need to get
That's
some.
amazing. It's literally changing your life. For better or worse, I'm not sure.
Well, one day I ate like 12 of them. That didn't go so well. But then I started limiting myself to like 5. And yeah, it's good. Good source of protein.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's basically me. Puppy, and I've been running and biking a whole bunch, and
I saw you post that running time, and I've been running pretty consistently since February, and I'm still really bad. I actually am pretty sure I have asthma, but
that makes it tough.
Like, I'm just jealous, but it's been super good. Like, I hate it still. Like, I always thought, was like, I'm gonna make myself like cardio one day. I still don't, but it's so healthy. If you feel accomplished. T-Mac, what do you got?
I have been playing a game called Ghosts of Tsushima, and it's good.
Tsushima.
I've heard it 3 different ways in this game alone. So, I mean, that goes right into one of my caveats with the game that I don't like about it. It is made by an American studio who made the English voice acting and lines the priority. So when you turn it, there's a Kurosawa mode in this game that makes everything black and white. It changes the audio, and everything's in Japanese. However, there's no lip syncing to the Japanese voice line, so it looks fucking ridiculous. And like, I don't know, even just like the acting of the characters is off because of that. It feels wrong. But there's such good artistic direction in the game with color and stuff that I am not playing in that mode, even though I really want to. The color, this game is beautiful. I'm a huge sucker for feudal Japan and that era of Japan and samurai and shit. So it's like, this might not scratch everyone's itch as much as it does mine. I just love being in that world. There's a lot of very standard open world game stuff in it. They do like to throw a little bit of twist on it, like instead of having to open your map and like have a compass to look how far you are from your objective, you can just swipe up on the motion pad and a gust of wind will blow in the direction that you're supposed to go in. And if you're like running around, a bird will start like flying by your head, and if you follow that bird, it'll lead you to a secret. Or in some cases, there's fox dens, and you just have to follow this fox, and it'll lead you to like these shrines. So that stuff's cool. The combat in it is fucking phenomenal. Very cool, very unique. Best samurai combat I've ever played. Unfortunately, that is a little hampered by some really dumb AI and some bad camera angles that get stuck behind a tree or something. It's hard to see. So it is kind of hard to parry in this game, because sometimes even just your character is blocking the enemy enough that, and the stance there, and you can't see their weapons, so you don't know when to try and parry. But the combat is phenomenal. It's simple but also really engaging. You open up new stances, and different stances are more effective against different types of enemies, and you kind of switch it on the fly. You like hold down R, it kind of does like a slow motion pause, and you can switch stances really quick and then go into fighting a different kind of enemy, which is really cool. There's some like kind of Breath of the Wild level like crazy videos that people post of some of the combos and shit that they do. Like the story is the other bad thing about this game. It's just very meh. Although it has some very interesting ideas. The whole concept revolves around a historical invasion of Japan by Mongolia, of Kublai Khan. He invaded Japan twice, I learned, and he did it the exact same way. He went to the two same islands both times and got fucked up both times. Yeah, it's this idea of like this samurai honor code, right? And the idea that they're getting their asses kicked because the Mongols are fighting in a very different way than they're used to. And so he has to learn essentially to be a ninja and kind of kill people dishonorably. And that's the most interesting part of the narrative, is to watching like kind of him start that journey of him, like his first like kill, because he's killed tons of people before, but his first kill he does is like an assassination up behind the back. It's like traumatizing for him. It's like watching a movie where someone has sex with someone they're not supposed to, because he kills the guy and they're just kind of like lying there on their backs, and he just, this like trauma washing over him is like so indicative of a scene like that.
Yeah.
It's just done in an interesting way that feels very interesting. But then the rest of the story just kind of falters. It's poorly paced. The villain is a fucking joke. He's like the most cartoonishly black and white bad guy. Like, it's not interesting that way. But overall, I really love it. If you love samurai shit, I highly recommend it. My last thing is a two-parter.
Oh shit!
Keeping with our theme of the white and black swan.
You determine for yourself which one's white and which one's black.
Well, I should say this. It's not. It's more of like a black and a gray.
And one of them is a swan, and
so
one of them is a goose.
One of them is an anti-recommendation. One's a partial recommendation. Anyway, I thought of two albums this week while I was drawing. I'm like, I got to go back and listen to these because I haven't listened to them in a long time, and I hated both of them at the time. I want to give them a chance. So I went back and listened to Make Believe by Weezer. Don't fucking go back and listen to that shit, okay? Like, if you're tempted to be like, I wonder if Make Believe actually wasn't as bad as I thought, it's worse than you thought, okay? Like, I tried it. It was an awful experience. The other one is, coincidentally, you're wearing this shirt. The 99 Songs of Revolution by Streetlight Manifesto.
Okay.
Is an album I did not love when I first heard it, because it's a bunch of covers done by a really cool ska band. And I went back and listened to it, and there's still some duds on there for sure. But there's some good ones. The Linoleum cover is really good. By NoFX, right?
Yeah.
Linoleum.
I mean, I'll say Linoleum, any cover of that song or the original is fucking good. It's just, Linoleum's a great song.
Linoleum's pretty damn good. They do a cover of Such Great Heights by Postal Service, which is fucking incredible because it's all horns, and so they're like matching the horns up to it. There's one other one on there too. There's a few bangers on there that are really, really good. And then I just started listening to Streetlight Manifesto and kept remembering how fucking great Streetlight Manifesto is. So yeah, those are my recommendations. That's what I got.
Cool.
I kept thinking, oh, you didn't watch anything. I was like, oh, you watched a lot of stuff you wouldn't recommend. And it's not even that you guys wouldn't like it, or even generally, it's just stuff that I'm like, I generally don't want to put that out there. It's like, yeah, I know people would enjoy this. But if you're wondering, if something's come out recently and you're like, was that good? You could probably ask me and I can be like, yeah, don't watch that new King Arthur show on Netflix. Like, did I watch all 10 hours? But did it disappoint me, but I kept watching? That's just most of my life.
I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
Because this is the thing I've seen advertised everywhere. It's in the top 10 of Netflix right now, I believe. Earlier today it was. I have no idea what the fuck it is.
Okay.
It looks awful.
I know what you're going to say, and I'm mad that I've seen it.
The Kissing Booth too?
Okay, so let me tell you a little story. All right, so I have real quality recommendations after this, okay? So I don't know why I watched the Kissing Booth one, but I did.
I am so glad you have watched this. I am so excited.
So in the Kissing Booth one, this girl is like best friends with the guy, and they have like rules for best friends. And his older brother's like the ultimate playboy dick. And then she falls for the older brother, and they try and hide it from the younger brother. And so in this one, older brother goes to Harvard, girl falls for new boy Marco, and they enter a Dance Dance Revolution contest together. And she thinks he's cheating. And so she eventually starts to fall for this other guy, and then she cheats even though he didn't really cheat. And oh my gosh. Anyway, so here's the thing. This movie is actually...
This is all the first movie, still.
No, so I moved into the second movie there. Oh, by the way, they secretly shot the second and third movie at the same time, like Lord of the Rings Pirates of the Caribbean style. So they're like, yeah, just so you guys know, we're going to... Right after this has been like the #1 movie on Netflix in like 10 countries for a week. They're like, oh yeah, and in early 2021, we're just going to drop the third movie.
What a power move.
But this chick who plays the main girl was just on some Hulu show that she got an Emmy nomination for playing like a cancer patient who's like emotionally manipulative or something. I don't take my word for it. Anyway, it's just weird to see her do both of those things. They're not good, but it is like Netflix has this niche. I don't know if you guys have heard of the other one, but it's like Letters to the Boys. No, something about To the Boys I Loved
To
Before.
the Boys I've Loved. I've heard of that. Yeah,
both crazy viral. This one was actually originally, it wasn't like a fan fiction. It was like an original story on this site called Wattpad.
Oh my god!
This is the second story Netflix.
We're adapting Wattpad fiction to holy shit.
It's just crazy successful for him. But look, they're not good. But if you like really, okay, I don't even know how to describe it because I wouldn't even say it's really shitty. It's just like this specific Gen Z, maybe really young millennial, like look at like here's a high school love story with like there's always that weird twist and there's always the same friend group. But yeah, I did watch that the other night.
I'm so glad you watched it.
Oh man, I'm so disappointed in me. I've been rewatching Boy Meets World, which is like my favorite like 90s show of all time. By the way, a lot of wrestling references in Boy Meets World. Just so you know, Vader's in there. Mankind shows up. They go to a match where he fights Jake the Snake.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah,
bunch of random weird wrestling connections. And then I watched a bunch of Glee because Naya Rivera died, and I watched that in high school with all my theater friends, which is something theater kids would do, and it was just weirdly. And they did a really good episode on when Corey Monteith died, who played the main guy in that, and it was just a weird look back. But I wouldn't recommend Glee to people, like even for the high school charm that it had. Speaking of high school charm, did you know Freaks and Geeks is not streaming or even purchasable anywhere except for in physical copy?
Really?
You can't even buy it on Amazon or anything right now.
I'm so glad I bought those Blu-rays last year.
Yeah, it's like $50 for the Blu-ray right now. Sorry,
worth
real
it.
recommendations. I don't know if I said this one already, but there's a show called Quiz. It was on AMC, and it is about a guy who cheated on the British Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And it's a true story, and it is only 3 episodes. And they're all a little over an hour. Fascinating. Like, that's maybe a nerd sweet spot for me, but really good British actors. And it shows all the intricacies. There's like this crazy underground secret fan network that were helping each other get on the show. I don't know if you guys remember, but whoever was in the seat, there are all these people on the side that played the fastest finger to try and get into the seat. Mm-hmm. They were all the same people over and over again because they knew how to cheat the system to randomly get selected.
Wow.
And so a brother so let's say the brother of the main character, the brother-in-law, gets on the show and fails. The wife gets on the show and fails. And finally the husband, who's like the least involved, gets on and wins. And this goes through, it's kind of like The Social Network in that it goes through the court case while we're also seeing him do the show. Also, that's Slumdog Millionaire. Anyway, it's really good.
Very true.
Anyway,
that's on Hulu, you said?
no, it was on AMC, but I think it is streaming somewhere. I think it is on Hulu now.
Okay.
But the actor's also in this HBO show called Succession that is like an insane gem. So I was already kind of invested in him. And I think the lead chick is famous. I'm just blanking. I'll have to look her up. But my last two, I'll make quick. One is Taylor Swift's new album. Guys, here's the thing. I haven't really liked her last two albums, and I'm a pretty big Swiftie. Lover was fine, and it was kind of pop, but it was not as good as Red or 1989, and Reputation's like a load of shit with a couple good songs, where she was just overthinking it. And this one, it feels like a fall album. I think it would have come out fall of next year if this weren't for Corona. People are calling it stripped down. I call it toned down, because it's still really produced, but it just is like, oh yeah, Taylor Swift can really write about her emotions. And I think she was obviously in a healthier place from Reputation to Lover just because she seems to be in a healthy relationship and have a healthier relationship to her insane fame. But this one, she kind of, a lot of people act like she's going back to her old stuff. I'm like, maybe some of it, but there's not a single attempt at a pop anthem. Yeah. There's a couple duds. A lot of the middle of the album honestly kind of sounds muddled, like it sounds very similar. I know the producers she worked with are Jack Antonoff and some guy from a thing called The National, which I don't know anything about.
A thing called The National.
Sorry, guys.
Okay. The National, just one of the biggest like indie rock groups from like the
except that I could be the singer for The National because you're just going on.
Hey, but I mean, we can say a bunch of stuff, but The National fucking rules. Yeah. And their hand is actually very clear on this album.
Everyone I know is like. Apparently, I should know who The National is, bottom line. Like, mainstream-wise, I should. But everyone's like, it is so insanely obvious that sometimes it's weird.
Yeah.
But also,
but
Bon Iver's on a song in here. It's really good. I just enjoy it. I really like The Invisible String, which is like a straight love song. I really like Betty, which has a country twang, and she says fuck, which is, like, it's kind of fun to hear her say, would you tell me to go fuck myself in a song? There are a few other gems. The song she sings with Bon Iver is really good, too. Like, I love that she dropped it. I think artists need to realize, because she does these huge lead ups to her albums. Once Beyonce just dropped an album, anyone can now just drop an album and it's okay. And for someone who like Clockwork does this every year and a half more like every 2.5 years she drops an album. I was just like, what a refreshing thing. And it is, everyone's been asking for her to tone it down. And this is clearly not going to be a great touring album because she still has to tour Lover. So I just like overall, I think, from a bigger perspective, is a career movement and just music that like, it's not happy. It's not summer music because I've been trying to listen. I've been watching like summer coming of age movies. I watched The Way Back. I know you love that one, Tyler. I was listening to like Blink-182's California album, which weirdly is I just really enjoy as like a summer enjoy. Like I was having that vibe, and this kind of was sad because I listened to it when it came out at midnight Eastern, and I was like, but I was like, I am excited to have a time when I think this tone is really going to fit my mood and to re-listen to it.
Yeah. I will say, as not a Taylor Swift fan at all, I actually really enjoyed that album and like hearing that.
Have you guys heard any of it? Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I listened to it yesterday. I didn't like really listen to it. It was on in the background. I missed about half of it just because it was on in the background. But what I did actually listen to, I really liked.
I don't really follow Taylor Swift a lot, but like I didn't know it was even out. Like I knew that. I thought that was an announcement when it dropped. I didn't realize it was out. So
she announced it in the morning and then dropped a music video, the album. She has 8 special physical editions of this with one bonus song. But like, it was all apparently that's something to do. K-pop people do, and it's just a great way to get money because no one buys physical copies anymore. So good marketing. My last recommendation, I want to get this out of the way because it's been taking up a lot of my time, and I'm a little guilty about it. But it's TikTok, and like that's probably pretty predictable for me, right? But the part of TikTok I like is really like the fact that I'm not a YouTube person, but I know a lot of people even closer to our age, I know it's thought of as younger, like still cruise YouTube for a lot of their entertainment. I think it's the best of that and Vine. And you're scrolling through and it's almost all non-famous people. Like, I don't know shit about famous TikTokers. I still don't, and I'm happy about that. But like, there's some hilarious shit. You do have to get through a lot of teenage girls doing dumb dances. And I've been trying to like and follow people so that it curates it to me. Yeah. And it still shows me a lot of slutty girls. And I don't mean slutty is in a slut shaming way. I know we're not supposed to use that word. It just shows me a lot of girls in very little clothing doing seductive dances. But when you get to see the funny stuff and a lot of lip reading and a lot of clever things, like, it is actually a pretty cool creative outlet. And we lost that in Vine. And while it's not limiting you to 6 seconds, which forced a lot of great creativity, it is still giving you that avenue. And I'm someone who does all the social media, but other than Twitter, which I use more as a reading tool, I use Twitter like people use Reddit or people like actually read the news. I don't think I use social media in a toxic way, but TikTok, I waste time, man. I can lay there and just scroll.
Would you say you're becoming TikToxic?
Yes. I'm going to go to a counselor. By the way, I've never made a TikTok, and sometimes like, man, that could be so funny.
Yeah,
it should be.
TikToxicity. Yeah.
Anyway, if you're there, if you need to waste time, I have a lot of time on my hands too. I'm like a little ashamed of it, but at the same time, it does have plenty of content that I know everyone enjoys, but there's so much of that. Like, there was that old app called Musical.ly, and there was the lip dubbing app that I think we're both kind of essentially bought out and eventually put into this. Like, there's a lot of shit that wastes your time, and it is what mostly 14-year-olds are doing, but there's a lot of really funny shit on there.
Cool.
All right, that was a long recommendation section, but we had a lot of shit to talk about. We hadn't seen each other for like 2 weeks.
So long.
Tyler also recommends Arizona as a state.
God.
It reminds me of The Good Place. How she's just like, Arizona's such a shit.
Listen, fuck Arizona. I was gonna try to like come back to the middle of the aisle somehow, but fuck it. Yeah. No, thank you.
Take
a stand somewhere.
Tyler, if people want to find us online, where can they reach us?
You can email us at rewatchersonthepod@gmail.com or on Facebook. I can't remember the best way to find us on Facebook. So instead, we'll go to Twitter and Instagram, which is at rewatcherspod. Whew.
All right.
And I don't know. I'm not going to tease that, actually. I was going to tease
Wait, should we tease next week? We didn't talk about it before the break.
Yeah, we did.
We did.
We did.
Okay.
We're going to watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles soon.
We're just going to ooze all over this podcast.
So secretly oozing.
I do that all the okay.
Little fires everywhere.
Cruising for an oozing. Oh, this is going to be a fun week of podcasts. I can tell you that. I'm already just.
You should all be excited. I'm so excited to see what NBA team we get an allegory from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Thank God. It's about time.
All right. We will. I'm Mitchell Marshall, and these have been my co-hosts.
Tyler McKinley.
Tyler Harris.
Justin Hammer.
Have a great week, everybody.